Record-breaking box office, an Oscar star is born, and Venom defies the cranky critics. Make Kanye 2006 again. SNL's Pete Davidson, Skewers rapper Brett Kavanaugh confirmed to SCOTUS what it means for the MeToo and midterms. Plus, is Melania Trump trolling POTUS again? All this and more on Meet the Hollywood Press for October 7th, 2018. I'm Alina Vision, and now your host of Meet the Hollywood Press, Joseph Kapsch.
Welcome to a new episode. What a week.
Right.
What a week, Alina. Welcome back, Alina.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be back. We've got so much to talk about, as usual.
We're getting very political on this episode of Meet the Hollywood Press, so I'm just going to preemptively tell viewers that, because what else has gone on this week? I mean, you wouldn't happen to know, would you?
Yep.
Well, anyway, I would like to point out that Alina and our guest, Meredith, who I'll introduce in a second, wore black, because in solidarity with their sisters for Me Too, Time's Up, correct? Yeah. I was going to wear black, and I decided let me err on the side of caution, so I'm kind of like a blueberry, a patriotic blueberry right now.
I love it.
Thank you. I'd rather just, with the last week we had, I just want to err on the side of optimism, which is why I saw Star is Born yesterday, and we'll get to that in a second. But let me first introduce my panel. First of all, thank you both for stepping in at last minute. Normally we book this like week, 2 weeks in advance, so thank you both. Meredith Lee, TV blogger extraordinaire. Welcome, Meredith, to the Meet the Hollywood Press table. Meredith and I have a little brief history when she was interviewing at TheWrap. Sent me a little candy bouquet, and now look at us here. I said there'd be someday that we would work together, and here we go.
And I thought it was clever.
Exactly. Jay Ponte joins us, who is a political strategist and organizer, who me and Jay have, again, another interesting history, where Jay, years ago, I ran out of gas on Sunset Boulevard in the Palisades, and this young gentleman helped me, which, by the way, you don't see that often in, like, the Palisades of, like, a BMW that's ran out of gas, because normally, like, it's like, this guy ran out of gas.
Yeah.
He helped me push my car to the side. It was, and then from there, we had like started to communicate on Facebook, and he's very political, and I'm very political with opinions. But we've had some spirited debates because this guy's really informed, and he actually makes me see as, you know, one progressive view versus another progressive review. It's like the kind of dialogue, but it remains, I would like to think, respectful at all times. Like,
yeah, I think so.
Some of the most fierce threads that would happen during the Bernie, he was a Bernie, I was a Hillary, and so obviously we know what that comes with. But I'm glad you're joining us, because there's a lot of political slanted stuff that I think you can add expertise and really talk about the midterms, because he's very involved with please tell viewers this whole effort that you're working for right now for the vote.
Yeah, right now there is an effort called Proxy.vote. It's an app that was founded by Alex Ebert, who is the lead singer from a band called Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros.
Yes.
I went to high school with him.
No way.
Small world.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Alex and I have known him since Occupy, and you know, we were involved together at Standing Rock. We did some, you know, organizing around Standing Rock, and if you remember the Jane Fonda bank exit protest,
of course,
right? Which actually just got featured on her documentary, Jane Fonda in 5 Acts.
The one that screened at the festival, right? Okay,
and now it's on HBO. So actually, if you see the last sequence of Jane Fonda standing against Wells Fargo for indigenous rights, I organized that protest.
Yeah.
And so Alex was also involved in that. He created an app called Proxy.vote, which helps people get connected to their policymakers, vote on policies, and we're also supporting some candidates in the midterm elections who have taken the Proxy Pledge. And basically, the app allows people to stay in touch with their policymakers, create transparency, that kind of thing.
So I'll let you at the end of the show get a little more in depth about that, but let's jump into the stories right now. Before we get to all the politics, I saw Star is Born, and I have to give this movie a huge shout out in the beginning. Did you see it yet?
I have not. I did the red carpet. I covered the red carpet for VHL.
So did either of you
I
see
haven't
it?
seen it yet.
Not yet.
Everything, and by the way, I don't know what critics are saying. I know that they're positive, but we're going to get to that in a second because I've had real gripes about critics this whole weekend on Facebook and social. But Stars Born is everything that you could imagine, just in terms of Lady Gaga, for me, and this is my opinion, again, it's like her Whitney Houston Bodyguard moment.
You're not the first person I've heard that
Yes.
from. I've heard that from several people.
Because it's not just only that she showed that she has acting chops in this and real heart, but the music is so powerful just itself. Like I was like a mess during the whole movie, like just crying, like when she just starts singing.
Right.
Bradley Cooper. Oh my! They're both, like, to me, Oscar.
Right.
Um,
And all of those live performances were actually shot live. Her singing. It's actual.
I was going to ask
live
about that.
performances,
So when they
yeah.
had the audiences, was that almost like they put calls out for like actual fans to be able to come hear them
They
sing?
actually filmed at different festivals. They filmed at Coachella. They
You could
filmed
tell.
at
You could tell.
Glastonbury, I think it's called. Yeah, so
In London,
those
okay.
were the places that they filmed. So everything was live. I read an article about the guy who did the sound mixing.
Yes.
He got pulled in the last, like, I think 2 months of when they were editing, and he was like, it was amazing to do the sound mixing because her voice, everything sounded just so real. Because normally with movies, they do voiceovers or the tracks it's a backtrack, and you can tell because people oversing, or whatever. It doesn't have that live sound. Yeah.
Bradley Cooper's voice too in the movie, incredible. Like I was just like so taken aback by this, because normally when it's like I saw the Oscar campaigns, the usual for your consideration,
Right.
It maybe this year, because with Harvey Weinstein, finally this is like the first year where he's not part of it. I'm not working currently like at a trade to really speak, but it feels like maybe it's less contrived of a campaign season now because of the fact that Stars Born is getting had got all this early buzz, and it actually had legitimate sort of like every journalist that sort of was just seeing it was just like naturally saying what they thought about it, and it was just across the board. They just all pretty much liked it. Even on Rotten Tomatoes, it was something like a 92% or something like that.
That's hard to get there. Yeah.
And not only that, because this is going to be a good segue for our Kanye-Pete Davidson thing that we're going to talk about, but the other thing that I said, when there's arguments about Stars Born online about like it's not that great, she's not, or this isn't that great, I have to say it's got a deep story about addiction and someone battling and just being in the entertainment industry with that. It touches and hits a lot of chords for people that are either are those people that have struggled with any of that, and also have been close to people struggling with that. So for me, it was more emotions that were evoked and elicited out of this movie, and I feel like so rarely nowadays do you truly feel during, at least me, like really feel during a movie. Anyway, hats off to the filmmakers, Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper. I can't wait to see them.
There's actually a tweet, Miss Tyra Banks, if we could pull that up.
Yes, please do.
Agreed with you. She said, "A Star is Born, and to be honest, her star has never shined so bright or far. Lady Gaga is a legend, a powerful female warrior, the truest definition of fierce, and now the star of the screen in 2018.
It's amazing. And I would just like to say, I was with 2 of my straight buddies seeing Star is Born, and all 3 of us were crying. So I would just like to say, real men cry, people. Real men cry.
Exactly.
Okay, so that leads me to Venom. Tom Hardy, okay? Typical superhero. I just want to do a little screed here, and I want to see, do you guys like read reviews to inform your decisions on what you're going to go see?
Not really.
Very rarely.
Yeah. Do you go and get do you go to Rotten Tomatoes, either of you?
I have before.
You do? Okay.
Sometimes.
How about you?
I go to Rotten Tomatoes normally because I go to movies with my husband, and he will not see anything that's like under 80% on Rotten Tomatoes.
On Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
Which is fair,
Yeah.
because but like he actually just uses that.
He does.
He looks at, because more often than not, that's what our ADD nation and millennial nation does. They look at the score, they maybe look at a couple quotes, and they're done. It's interesting to me that once again these breathless like reviews and screeds from like elitist critics about how Venom was and it's like it's not supposed to be a friggin' work of art, okay? It's a goddamn superhero movie. No, and I get this is so personal for me because I worked in journalism through the era when newspapers were taking a big hit, and I had to be part of like a team at the LA Times that taught that place how to be a 24/7 newsroom. And back then it was
Right.
like journalists were thinking the internet was a phase. Okay, we know where we're at now. It's the same thing with criticism. It's like, here's what I'm going to say. Don't waste your time as an editor. Like, I used to signing invoices on a bad review of a superhero movie, because guess what? I'd rather pay for a news story, because everybody's a critic. You're just going to go
Right.
online and see what everybody thinks anyway. And if you're a movie star, 80% of people said in a survey that Deadline posted, they went because they're Tom Hardy fans. 90% went because they
Right.
want to see the character
see
brought
the
to screen.
person I like.
Why waste your time talking about everything that's wrong with the movie when people don't care? They're going to go see it. Just like, guess what I'm doing right after this? Going to see Venom, everybody.
Yeah.
Going to see it.
Yeah, well, for
Keep
me,
them horrible reviews coming.
It's been Movie Pass for me has taken a lot of the pressure off of that.
Yeah.
Because
Interesting.
I'll go see
Yeah.
Movie Pass, and if it's a dud,
It's okay.
You're just done. It's okay.
You know.
It's
I
all
just
good.
go for that. I honestly just go like, if the actor I like is in it, I'll go see it.
Right.
Tom Hardy's
Yeah.
usually pretty solid
Yeah.
at that, though.
Yeah.
I'm just like this. I'm like, do you think millennials really care what like a curmudgeon film critic that barely can use Twitter and the Facebook says about a movie? No, they don't. I'm sorry.
I think they care mostly about their peers, though. I think for
that's
them,
what
it's, I
Right.
think it's
Thank
really
you.
about
Yeah.
it's peer to peer, and it's in social media, hearing what their peers.
Yes,
Right.
they're literally writing for other critics, which I said on social. I was in a big argument about it, like on social, or maybe I was in an argument with myself on a former editor's thread, Greg. Hey, Greg, and it was like I was basically saying like they're writing for other critics, like they're never writing for themselves. Like, are you actually? Because I'd rather watch. This is what I want to see, and on my startup, it's going to be 5 people just after they get out of the theater, 5 just average Joes,
Right.
diverse, a girl, a guy, different walks of life, on a video, and tell me what you thought of the movie. I'd rather watch that than like a critic against a thing. Hey, this is my brand. Oh, with like the prepared lines. Oh, it's the greatest time you'll ever have. It's like, no, I don't care.
Right.
And nobody else does either, because why would Venom have broke records if anyone cared? Because they looked at the Rotten Tomato score and that didn't deter them.
Exactly.
Anyway, I'm moving on. I'm on one
You
today.
said your piece.
Yeah, I did say my piece. Anyway, let's move on to what we're actually here to talk about. Pete Davidson. Can we just run the clip quickly and then we'll come back?
His reaction to Kanye's speech is Pete Davidson.
First off, a lot of people thought Che should be the one to talk about Kanye, but we discussed it, because Che's black, but like I'm crazy, and we both know which side of Kanye is at the wheel right now. So, off to a good start. So speaking strictly for myself, what Kanye said after he went off the air last week was one of the worst, most awkward things I've ever seen here. And I've seen Chevy Chase speak to an intern. And we all had to stand behind him. And here's what it looked like. So, that inspires me. I'm on the left. I'm like, oh, God. And then I'm like, I want a career, so I leave. So Kanye was wearing a MAGA hat. That's what it's called. It's stupid. Yeah. And he started by saying people backstage tried to bully him into not wearing it. He wore it all week. Nobody told him not to wear it.
Okay, we can come back from that. Just wanted to give you guys a taste. So he continues on about how Kanye, he basically says, this is where I think it's, for me, got me. Like Kanye's saying, this is me off the meds, and it's like, this is the real me. And then Pete Davidson is basically like, if a pilot was saying, if a pilot was saying, sorry, if a pilot was saying, I lost my train of thought. If a pilot was saying, oh, I'm off the meds, and you're about to get on a plane, would you be like, oh, it's the real me? You'd be like, get me the hell out of here.
He'd jump
so
off.
Pete Davidson's point was he's also battles whatever issues he has. And he's like,
Bipolar and
yes,
Crohn's
takes the
disease.
meds.
He has actually borderline personality disorder.
Oh, is it?
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Okay.
So he's trying to say that, like, and I agree. We said, okay, I would just like to say, pat ourselves. Last week we were talking about the Kanye stuff, and I said he's making a mockery out of mental illness because it's making people think that this is how. No,
Right.
if you're like going to proper therapy and you're going to proper support and you're taking your medication, you can function like a healthy human being. So Kanye's not only like pissing everybody off from like just with all of the crossing, like with all the racial undertones about supporting Trump and everything else that he's doing and all the slavery, he's also making a mockery, and that's why you can speak to this because you've worked with.
I've worked with kids who have special needs, and I've worked from the most severe to the most mild. I've had experiences where I've been kicked in the chest and hair pulled. I mean, but you still, it's not a hall pass, even if you get injured while working, even if a kid explodes, you still need to talk about it afterwards. So it's just not.
What's your feeling when you watched Kanye do that speech? Because obviously you're progressive, you're very liberal. And
I mean, it's difficult because I just hearing that borderline was the diagnosis. Borderline is really tough because the affect of borderline is that it makes it almost impossible for them to self-reflect.
But is that
Pete Davidson?
Pete Davidson.
Is borderline.
Pete Davidson's borderline.
Kanye
Yeah.
is bipolar.
So
Bipolar,
Kanye's
right?
bipolar.
Yeah, well, I mean, in terms, it's difficult to stigmatize mental illness.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a difficult conversation. Also, not being a person of color, I'd be shy to weigh in on that a little bit.
Yeah,
I will
no,
just
I
say
understand
that
that.
I can see how Kanye gravitates. I would say probably there's some. I'm not going to give an armchair diagnosis, but he classically seems like a narcissist. I can
Yes.
see why he would resonate with Donald Trump, who is a classic narcissist. And what do we know? When you say outrageous things, you get attention.
Yeah.
People like attention, and now it seems that the more attention, the more oxygen you can take up in the national media, the bigger your brand gets, either negative or positive.
What I really liked about Pete Davidson, his whole thing on this though, how measured and like he did it with a smile, calmly.
Right.
It had comedy. He was like self-deprecating the fact, like, look, when I went off my meds, I bit my mom, but I bought her a house. Don't worry, I took care of it. But his point was it was powerful to me. I love Pete Davidson, by the way, even before we love him more with the Ariana Grande engagement. But he was always funny. I'm glad they're giving him more of a showcase. But it just hit on so many points for, like he said also, Kanye, and I agree, Kanye's a genius, yes, a musical genius. I want people to start qualifying that because I love when people are like, he's a genius, Kanye's a genius. It's like a musical genius. And he goes, his reference in it was like, Joey Chestnut is a hot dog eating genius, but I don't want to hear political opinions from a hot dog eating genius.
We all participate in the culture, though.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
We've created. I mean, the Donald Trump is a big part of the reason Donald Trump is president because the major networks give him $3 billion in free advertising. So have you seen Michael Moore's new movie, 11/9, Fahrenheit 11/9?
We talked about it a couple weeks. I didn't.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So he
I heard
gets
it's
into a
scary,
lot
though,
of
that you're going to be like, I'm going to be crawled up in a ball when I get home
I think
from
it's
it.
overwhelmingly positive because it shows how the millennials are getting into the game. It shows people are getting together. It shows the March for Our Lives, how how powerful the kids using technology and social media is.
Right.
And the Me Too movement has been a force of changing culture. So I'm personally,
Except for when it comes to the Senate chamber.
yeah, well, it's not an overnight. If you have a Republican president, a Republican Senate, a Republican Congress, most likely you're going to get the nominations going to go through.
Yeah.
Except for, Joe Manchin. Yeah, and I think that no one wants to talk about Joe Manchin. It's like, no one wants to talk about that. So
I want to talk about him. We'll get to it in a second.
Right.
Okay,
Let me wrap this up. Are we good on Pete Davidson?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was really happy to see him openly talk about his mental illness.
Me too.
And because I think it does need to be destigmatized, a lot of people don't go and get the help that they need because they think, I don't want to be that quote-unquote crazy person. And Kanye, it's clear that he's off his meds.
Yes.
And a lot of people who are going through treatment go on and off their meds. It's very common.
Yeah.
But they also need to have people around them that are supportive, that'll try to get them back on their meds. And I feel like because Kanye has such a big microphone and because he is who he is, unfortunately, when he does go off his meds, he's like, I'm going to go to TMZ. And it's really hard to stop him from doing that.
You can't stop
and there's
him.
people out there who take advantage of that, i.e. Trump, Candace Owens.
Yeah.
Like, those are the people that he does not need around him at that time, because they're using his voice when he's, ill.
She's like his biggest. She instigates every time. Like, you weren't here last week. It's funny you brought her up because she was the one that was quote tweeting all his stuff.
Exactly.
And like she was almost like giving it like credibility. Because like she's not like, she's a smart girl. Like, whether I disagree or agree with her politics and platform, she's a smart woman.
Right.
And so it's like she was giving it credibility. And I was like, this stuff that you're giving credibility is crazy.
Right. You shouldn't be taking advantage of somebody who's ill.
Well, the interesting thing about this whole mental illness thing too, and it's like anyone who had worked with me in the past would know this, because it's like it's now all in fashion to say that you battle mental illness. It's like I take medications for certain conditions and things like that, and I've always been open about it to people that are in the circle. I don't want to be like the person jumping on the bandwagon, but it's like Pete's absolutely right. Take the meds, Kanye.
Right.
Take them. There's no shame, because it's like, first of all, it's extremely dangerous, because the kind of like mental illness drugs that people take, if you're off them for like a amount of time,
your brain
your
goes
brain
backwards.
is so like, it's not like you can't just cold turkey like stop things like that. It's like extremely dangerous. There's even side effects where people have like committed suicide in those kind of states from like stopping meds that are like very anyway. We could talk about this. I'm not a doctor, you're not, we're not, I'm not, I'm trying to diagnose, but I loved Pete. If anyone hasn't watched it that's watching our show, check out Pete Davidson's, like, he eviscerated him with a smile on his face and intelligently, but with also kindness.
Right.
Saying,
I agree with everyone that just because Kanye has a mental illness, it doesn't give him the go-ahead or the green light to say what he's been saying.
Not at all.
I mean,
it's like
just, in fact, because you can't have the world adapt to you. You have your own issues, and then you have to figure out how to adapt to the rest of the world.
Right.
It's just too...
Yeah. All right, moving on from that. So let's talk about this whole Brett Kavanaugh as we continue our political discussion here.
You can hear a collective, oh, God.
My soul is mourning.
The funny thing is, like, that's why I headed to the movies on a matinee yesterday, because I just knew that it was going to come down after all of the last 2 weeks of everything. I had said this from the start. I'm like, he's going to get confirmed. There's no question about that in my mind at all. But it was just, you want to hope, you want to have that glimmer of hope that maybe someone's going to come through. So let me start with this. Do you think Susan Collins is more hated than Betsy DeVos on Twitter right now?
Well, yeah.
I don't know. I think that it's... I think there are more productive conversations, because I think we get hyped in the moment. We get sucked into these conversations. They're not productive.
No, I know.
And meanwhile, she's a Republican. Is it a shock that she's gonna vote with her party? To me, it's not that shocking. For me, I think looking at Joe Manchin, that to me, I feel that would cause a lot more backlash. The
only thing I could put together with Joe Manchin totally being a sellout to the Democratic Party in this case is there's some kind of backroom deal that was cut that he's going to get something, some pork barrel spending that he's going to get for his district that's just going to make him more. I don't know, but I feel like we went into that without any like background context for our listeners and viewers. So obviously Brett Kavanaugh, if you've been living under a rock, got confirmed to the Supreme Court after 2 weeks of multiple allegations. Dr. Ford testifying before Senate on her allegations, and then multiple subsequent allegations. And then a very angry Brett Kavanaugh coming to testify himself, make his case, and then was parodied parodied that week by Matt Damon, which basically looked like the same thing, just a heightened sense of it, which was scary into itself. So then he finally, the night before, wrote a Wall Street Journal op-ed, again, that was appealing directly to who he needed to appeal to. And this led us to Susan Collins, which was so crazy too. Like Susan Collins, who was one of the 3 or 4 critical votes that could swing it either way, had voted on, was it Friday that when they were voting for the first procedural vote, and she had voted yes, it should move to the next stage, and then I'll be making an announcement at 3 p.m. It's just like, okay, so
It's
we
like
had
sweeps week.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
It was so like political theater, kabuki theater at that, but it's like that whole thing. How long was that speech? Because I feel like it was longer than a State
It
of
was
the
an hour.
Union
I think
address.
it was 50 minutes. It was really long.
What were you most alarmed about in the speech? Because I know what I am, but I want to hear. Like, pick me like 2 pieces of her speech that was most alarming.
You see, I keep a different mindset around all of this. I don't take the bait because I stay focused on organizing. I organize locally, on the statewide, nationally. I try to stay. For me, we get on these big roller coaster rides, mentally and emotionally.
No.
And my ability to make change is dependent upon my mindset.
Yes.
So I stay focused on what I can influence.
But you watched it.
I didn't watch it that much.
No, but pieces of it, like that you caught on
honestly,
social.
it doesn't. I don't.
Yeah.
It does. I don't have any control over that.
Yeah.
I don't have any control over that. So it's largely it's theater. A lot of it's theater.
Yeah.
And
That was
if you
theater.
understand that this is what's happening behind closed doors, really what it comes down to is, as citizens, we get to bring in progressive candidates who are going to represent the people. Period. That's what the whole thing is about.
So you're just saying, like, the way that you make it through as a progressive is that you just keep working at changing the people in power to make these decisions.
Yeah, and
right?
also I think there are a lot of our allies who, for the first time, I think people got a shock that we have allies in Washington, people coming down from New York, Bob Bland from the Women's March, Winnie Wong from People for Bernie, Linda Sassar. They brought a lot of women in and they were shutting it down. And I think for the first time in my lifetime, I remember you would never see that type of thing happening on the national stage in politics. A Supreme Court nominee getting protested by people putting their bodies on the line and actually getting carried out in handcuffs. I mean, to me that is remarkable. It
was amazing to see.
It is amazing to see, but it's both amazing to see. But then you think back to, like, didn't we make this progress? Wasn't this progress supposed to have been made like 100 years? Like, it feels like we're regressing in so many ways.
Especially from Anita Hill now to Dr. Ford. We went backwards.
I'm sorry. Do you want to
go ahead?
No, I was agreeing with that. Is that it does feel like we've gone backwards in terms of. And it just feels with the Susan Collins thing that we sort of.
Well, let me tell you what was most alarming for me, because since you can't speak to it, I will. Yeah. She said within that speech, okay, for a second there was measured pieces where she did have a very laid out case as to where she arrived at this decision and why, right? She said something, though, that then she lost me. She was saying about how if anything, this opened up a national dialogue so that we can talk about sexual, because she had no idea that it was this.
Right.
Where have you been living, lady?
You should know.
As a woman, you acted like this is like shocking to you.
Yeah.
Like,
It is
and
an
then I was like, I'm
epidemic.
done. Canceled. I was like, canceled. As soon as I said that, I was like, done. I literally was listening to her, and I was kind of like, okay, I see where she's saying. Okay, she had the information. She had to base it on this, and there wasn't substantiation, which, by the way, a Republican says there's no substantiation, and a Democrat says, so it's like, I want to see the goddamn report ourselves. Like, they still haven't released that. Anyway, you can tell I'm getting heightened, so.
You have feelings.
Let's bring it back.
All sorts of feelings.
Bring it back around.
It's an important topic because of one of the fundamental changes in our democracy has been social media. And the algorithms in Facebook put us into what are called echo chambers. So you only have people who think exactly like you talking to each other and sharing
which is
a lot of
crazy
fake
too.
news.
I don't want to only talk about politics with people that agree.
Right.
That's why you and I have disagreements about the Democratic side. I want to hear from people that do have different opinions. But the only thing I ask is that they come from an informed place.
Right.
Don't just come
Not
from the
the
place
echo
of,
chamber.
I only watch Fox News and Breitbart, and then I'm going to argue with you. Listen, I have to look at it all. Do I enjoy one more than the other? Yes, I'm a journalist that's going to say absolutely journalists have opinions in their brain. But the journalist can maintain objectivity when their questions that they're being asked are presenting both sides of the story. That's where, it's like, I love it how it's like, it's no secret that you can watch CNN and think, think, sure, in their innermost thoughts, are they more left-leaning? Hands down, in my opinion, right? But they're still asking the questions that present both sides of a story. It's only when you stop asking the questions that present both sides of the story that then you're a partisan journalist, you know? We all have affiliations. We're just not supposed to say them if you're a journalist.
Well,
it's like
the whole thing with the echo chamber, it's what I've noticed, it's really only one opinion counts, and then if you think anything differently, then suddenly you're just...
It's not so much, I think you're saying more about like the Twitter social media mob. It is like, we have gotten to this point where it's like, I know everyone's going to have different opinions, but not if it's at the detriment where people are being hurt. You know, you can't have an opinion that's like, I have this opinion and this is going to hurt half of America, you know, in ways like when we had the kids at the border and stuff like that. It's like, you don't get to have an opinion and justify something.
We still have those kids.
I know.
It's still going on. I mean, at the end of the day, I think the reason you and I still have a relationship is because, you know, I work hard to be open, you know, and I say, well, listen, my opinion is informed. You know, I have a lot of people who are kind of on the outside and maybe watch CNN, and that's where their filters are coming. I was like, you know, I was actually at the Democratic Platform Committee. I know the people who were involved. You know, so that's where my opinion is coming from. But I'm open to hearing a better argument.
Exactly.
And I think where it falls off with all of us, whether it's Kanye or everything else, our first inclination is to say, you're wrong.
You're wrong.
And,
I know.
You know,
everybody wants...
you're wrong, and people hate to be made wrong, even if they are wrong.
Oh,
you know?
I agree.
And so, like in our country, you know, it's punitive justice versus retributive versus transformative justice.
Yes.
And this is why we have more prisoners in our society than anywhere else on the planet, because you're wrong and we're going to punish you instead of asking questions. So what happens is we take sides and then there's no dialogue. You know, I'm with my tribe, you're with your tribe, and there's no conversation.
There's no common sense conversation. It's disappeared in our nation.
How long do you guys think this is going to go on for? I was actually having this conversation with my dad, how America has become so tribal, and what is the answer to it?
I think it's going to be a while.
I think it's going to be a while.
And
too.
I also hate to be the bear, like the skunk at the garden party, as I like to say. I believe Trump is going to get, if the Democratic side does not come to a conclusion of like where their bread's, but like who are you all supporting, whether you're further left than this Democrat or you're more center, you all, if the Democrats do not unite soon, and if we have this whole thing with like we had with Bernie and Hillary, Trump will get 4 more years unless Mueller has goods. Mueller is literally the only red herring left now that could, like, because you got Kavanaugh, that's done.
Right.
So the only thing left now, I mean, the New York Times investigation of his taxes, where he, you know, 413 million allegedly, you know, whatever.
That's
like,
a huge story,
and it got buried by Brett Kavanaugh. Which,
well, I mean, it's a great point, and I would say to that point, really, there are two conversations. One is, are we going to keep listening to the party bosses who select their candidates in the Hamptons behind closed doors, and they cut out the grassroots? There is what we proved in 2016, whether you're for them or against it or didn't care, is that the grassroots raised more money in small dollar donations than it crushed Obama's fundraising. And that has never happened before. And so I think what is important is to realize that this old model of I'm just going to trust who the party delivers and then, you know, they're going to do a good job, that's over. And that's clear. Like, Trump read the writing on the wall. I mean, of course, like, his followers are like literally subscribing to a different reality. But this is like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Whether you like her, that's the canary in the coal mine. Okay, the grassroots. Like, she reached out to the largest voting bloc are no party preference people who are not voting. That's the largest voting bloc in America. So, and again, like, the Democrats have lost them over the years. You know, by not, you can't just be against Trump.
Well, they're not talking about the right issues always to reach those people.
Like, it's one side takes abortion, one side takes guns, and then you pick your side. And that's not what people care about. They care about their jobs. They care about their kids. How am I going to put my kids through college? You know, I can't afford health care. And that's it.
Just in terms of, like, when you were saying about the interesting thing was with this Susan Collins speech, Hollywood was mobilizing. Do you have any of those tweets?
Yes, I do. To bring it back
because you're talking about the money and the grassroots. Well, Maine's going to have so much Hollywood money pour
Yeah.
into
2020.
it. Oh, my
Yeah,
God.
so speaking of that,
Yes.
actually, right when Susan Collins was making her speech on the Senate floor, there was a crowd pack that was, raising money for her 2020, the person who was going to go against her, the Democratic nominee go against her. Somebody put out a tweet, Jen Paskey put out a tweet, says, who wants to run, and this is for Susan Rice, for Juliet and the
Jen
control
Paskey
vote.
was the former communications director under Obama, or
Right.
one of them, or something like that.
Who
yeah.
wants to run for Senate in Maine? There will be an army of supporters with you. And Susan Rice, the former UN ambassador, said, me. Now, that crowd pack site actually crashed because so many people were trying to donate during that time, and you couldn't donate for a few hours afterwards.
Yeah.
But now it's up to over $3 million. Bringing it back to Hollywood, Alyssa Milano, who was very, very prevalent
yeah.
during this whole Kavanaugh situation. She tweeted out, don't let this performance fool you. If Senator Collins believed in Me Too, she would have opened the door when I was in her office to hear stories of constituent survivors. So true. Another one in Hollywood is Ellen DeGeneres, which we love Ellen. She tweeted, this tweet is for Dr. Ford. You put yourself through so much, and I want you to know it wasn't in vain. You started a movement, and we'll see it through. If they won't listen to our voices, then they'll listen to our vote. So true.
Yeah, Hollywood is like really, really enraged.
People are really enraged. People aren't going to shove it down.
No.
I'm letting it marinate.
Yeah.
I'm letting it sizzle. I'm donating. I've signed up to volunteer to canvass.
Yeah.
And then I'm voting.
I hear you, and I'm trying to err on the side of zen and optimism. Hence why my first inclination was to join you with the black, and I go, let me try to
Well, this was planned.
stay
Yeah,
on. That's why I
of
went to see
course,
a
great
movie
minds think
yesterday.
alike.
My instinct was like stay home and like stay glued to the TV when he gets confirmed. Like why? To stew in my own
Right, yeah.
frustration. So I went and saw A Star Is Born, and it was
Exactly.
the best thing. Anyway. This is just, I really want to thank you both for coming by and give you just a quick second to, Jay, if there's anything about the platform that you're working with, the app.
Yeah, right
Because
now.
I thought that was really interesting. Where can they find it?
Yeah, first off, you can go into both stores.
Okay.
You can go into either Mac or Android. Download Proxy Vote.
Proxy Vote,
Or go to
okay.
proxy.vote on the web.
Proxy.vote, okay.
And essentially, it's a way for you to create a profile, see how you match up with your candidates, how
Yes.
you match up with your policymakers. And right now, we have 4 candidates: Clark Tucker in Arkansas. Cara Eastman in Nebraska, who's amazing.
Yeah.
These are really solid challengers. Katie Hill in our own District 25.
Okay.
If you're in California, go out and...
That's who I'm canvassing
Yes.
for.
Oh,
High five.
Alina knows
Yeah,
it.
we need to get rid of Steve Knight.
Yeah.
And Julia Peacock.
Okay.
So you can download those.
Download
and
the app.
You can, and then you can also
Proxy.vote.
email jay@proxy.vote. I can help get you plugged in.
Perfect.
So that's what's going on.
Meredith on social, at Meredith.
At Twitter is MaraLee727,
Perfect.
and same with Instagram. They're both
Sure.
the same.
Check her out there
And-
for her musings on TV and entertainment.
You can also go to Climate Hawks Vote. If you want to find what candidates, they really pick legitimate challengers.
Yeah.
So that we can get some real progressives in
Say
there.
it again.
Climate Hawks Vote. You can look that one up. And
Okay.
also, I have a book coming out in a couple months that if you want to
Congrats.
learn more about it's called the Political Revolutionaries Handbook.
Where are you on social? They can find all this out.
At Jay Ponte on most of the platforms.
Perfect.
All right.
Jay, thank you. Alina, can you tell everybody where to find us?
I know, absolutely. Listen to more of us. Watch more of us. You can find us
Review
at...
us,
Exactly.
please. Oh my God,
No.
I have at least 100. I'm sorry.
It's
again.
okay.
I have like hundreds of emails, texts, and phone calls where it's like, love your show, love it because this. Please go on to iTunes and rate
Yes.
that. It takes like 2 seconds and rate us, please.
iTunes or YouTube. We love the comments.
Yes, we'll take it anywhere.
We'll like it.
Like Jennifer Aniston.
Exactly. So you guys can find us on the AfterBuzz TV YouTube. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts at MTHP. Rate, give reviews. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Meet the Hollywood Press and on Twitter at Meet the HWD Press.
And I'd like to thank everybody for bearing with us as we took a complete left turn into politics today and come back the next 2 weeks. We've got some special, I've got some special reunions with some big journalists from Business Insider and also Variety. So stay tuned for that. Thanks everyone for listening and watching. We'll see you next week.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.